This episode of ACMG Presents Talk Time Live is brought to you by Viewfinder's Identity Search and Design, your choice for multimedia development for your brand. Visit VFISAD.com and find out how we can make your vision your reality.
This is Miley Flanagan, the voice of Naruto, and you are listening to ACMG Presents Talk Time Live. Believe it!
Here comes a new challenger. Time for your Talk Time Live exclusive.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Dak Xavier Josiah, and as a special post-Christmas treat, I have a very special guest on the show right now. You may have heard her voice in so many video games and so many animes, and we are happy to have her on here. You may absolutely recognize her as the voice of the beloved character Hinata on Naruto series, and of course, the voice of the most iconic and historic character in animes and Sailor Moon. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Stephanie Sheh. How are you doing today?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you for being a part of the show. We've had so many people on our show right now, and you are probably, of all people, are probably the most prestigious to say that have
I
on the
wouldn't
show.
say that. Thank you.
Hey, with your list of, your IMDb list, I almost lost a short of breath just reading off of that list of things that you have done in the industry. It's tremendous, and thank you for being a part of the show again. What I wanted to ask, just to start off, what was your first discovery? When did you first discover your love of acting, actually?
It's hard to say. I think I actually grew up pretty shy, so I don't think it was until junior high, around then, that I kind of started, I think I got, I was watching some TV shows, and I was really into them, and that's what kind of got me into the learning about the shows and the actors and stuff, and I was like, oh, it seemed like a cool thing. And
do you remember that one show?
I gotta say, I literally think it was like a soap opera. So my first interest in the idea that acting was like a career or a thing to do was, as a career, was really superficial.
Yeah.
But I'd always been performing. My mom signed me up for a bunch of, dance and all sorts of different kinds of performing classes and stuff.
Right.
I did plays. I did all sorts of things. So yeah. So it was. It wasn't. I was familiar with the performance end of stuff. I was in choir. I did all sorts of things like that. But
now, was she the one that recognized your love for it? Because I know it was my second grade teacher that, I'm an artist, so it was my second grade teacher that kind of noticed that I had this particular talent and started pushing it a little bit more. Was she the one that inspired it for you?
Actually, no. My parents were not really that supportive. They just wanted me to be well-rounded, and my mother really liked the arts, so she supported us in terms of in that sense. Right. But she'd never wanted it as a career for us because it's a very difficult career. Yeah. And she just wanted us to be healthy and happy, and she didn't want our lives to be hard and full of disappointment and misery. So she actually did not really support that as a career choice.
Understood.
Yeah. So, yep. So she was not. Yeah, that was not something that she supported in that sense. In that sense of it. So, but she wanted us to like it, and she wanted us to be able to be relatively good at it in that sense, but not necessarily
more like a hobby than a profession.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But not actually have it be our career. She knew that it was going to be a tough life.
And it understood. I mean, at that time and era too. I mean, I think now in this day and age, more people are trying to pursue and take that risk. in this day and age, whereas like back then it was like the line of work that people were trying to do and how they were trying to do it. It's scary because, you know, in some cases, you know, you're a mother, you're a parent, somebody, you're thinking in your head like, all right, people made it out there, but it's not everybody's going to make it. And you always think of the scare tactics and the fear of it. So I understand that.
And I think if you are really truly committed to the craft, you know, it's not about being famous, because most people aren't. It's just about being able to make a living at it, you know?
Thank you very much for saying that. And that to me is a pivotal statement right there, because I think a lot of people, the outside, the naked eye of what you do, what I do, I think don't understand the true nature of why we do it. It's not for fame. It's not for money. If that happens, it just happens. But just the love of what you're doing should outshine all of that, you know?
Yeah, totally.
Absolutely. Now, growing up, were you a fan of anime and comics or games? You know, everything that you're involved in. You know, or did you assimilate into it once you started working in the industry?
I watched Robotech.
Nice.
When I was a kid, and I didn't know that it was anime.
It was more of a soap opera, wasn't it?
Yeah, totally.
Close to a soap opera as a kid.
I just thought it was a cartoon on TV. I didn't realize it was.
Mm-hmm.
It was anime. So
back then too, it wasn't really called anime. It just that label was labeled in the 90s, more or less. You know, it was sort of a cartoon back then.
I don't really know the history of in terms of when people started using that word, but I mean, I just didn't know it was from Japan or, you know, any of that stuff. I just knew that that's the show that I liked. And then when I went to college, that's when I was kind of exposed to it a little bit more. And I was I was definitely into the fandom, and that's actually how I ended up pursuing voice acting, because I was not an actor who was like, oh, I always wanted to do voiceover. I just wanted to be an actor, and at the time, the bar seemed very low in terms of voice acting for anime. So I loved anime, and I was like, and actually at the time I didn't like the dubs. I just preferred to watch subtitles because I didn't think the dubs were very good.
I'm glad you pointed it out too. I'm very glad you pointed it out, because we talked about this all the time. In fact, way back in our early days of, which was about a year ago, of the show, you know, we did a actual episode called Sub versus Dub. And I always said that, like, the dubbing now has far superseded the quality that was back then, because I don't think they understood the ideology and the culture of anime back then. And what you guys are doing now is extraordinary. You know, it makes me want to listen to the English dubs now, as much as taking time to read the subs and everything. And I was with you back then too, because you know, this was back then when it was VHS. was when I was watching it back then. So, yeah, you guys go far and away, and I totally agree with you on that.
Yeah, and I hopefully it's better. I know some people probably still prefer subtitles.
We call those anime uppities.
I mean, I think it's fine. I don't feel like there needs to be a debate about it, because nowadays there's a DVD, you can switch between both languages.
Right.
I feel like before it was more of a thing, because you would get a VHS tape, and then sometimes they wouldn't allow you, like the companies would only make so many dubs or so many subs. And so I can understand if you were a subtitle fan and you go to the store and they would only carry dubs, you get really upset, you know, and vice versa. So then from that token, I understand why there is more of a debate. But nowadays, I don't feel like there needs to be. I feel like you just watch the language that you like on the DVD, and it's just, you know, the fans should just promote anime in general so that there is more anime instead of infighting.
Well,
I just don't understand the reason. You know, it's not effective. It's not. There's no real like point to it.
It's not the end of the world, in other words.
I mean, your energy debating that could be used to do you could better the world. You know what I mean? You could debate other things like that. That just doesn't seem important.
I agree.
So.
Now, what were some of the learning curves of doing voice acting that you had to work on when you first started?
I think like the trickiest thing, if you're speaking about anime specifically, is lip syncing, and that would be like when we perform, we have to perform to picture, so we have to match the lip flap. So that's kind of tricky. You get 3 beeps, and then you go, and then you have to speak in the timing, and you have to act in a way that is that matches the animation, and that can be a little bit tricky. And then I think beyond that, if you're not a performer, it could be kind of tricky for all the bigger stuff, the more dramatic stuff. It could be you could be a little bit shy about yelling or being, things like that. I've seen that happen for newer performers, or even just getting used to hearing your own voice.
Yeah.
Sometimes it weirds people out in the beginning.
Yeah.
And I remember it weirded me out a little bit in the beginning. Just like you could hear every little like breathing sounds like it's like you feel like you're Darth Vader. It's like so loud. And now it's like I don't even notice it.
And you don't realize it because you don't realize how powerful these microphones are, too. So you have to weigh out in the distance and everything. I think that's something I learned just doing this show alone. So when you said that, I was like, oh, yeah, I remember those days.
Yeah, totally. So, I mean, and then there's like a bunch of other little things that, you learn as you go. I'm trying to think, like, what else? There's a little bit more in terms of the philosophical choices about, keeping things grounded or acting for style. So that's a thing. There's a lot of different, actors are actors, but there's different styles of different projects that you work on. So different types of video games have a different style. The best way to make that analogy is like if you were to watch television, right? And you're watching, I don't know, you're watching something like, I'm trying to think of what's kind of popular. Game of Thrones, right? Game of Thrones has a particular style of acting, and then you watch something like Bones, or Castle, which has a different style of acting. If you said your lines from one show like they act in the other show, it just wouldn't work.
Right.
Not that it's not that actors are better from one show or the other. It's like the tone and the style is a shift.
It's a complete contrast.
And so you need to kind of like learn how to act for different properties, you know, and that's something that people don't always talk about, but when you're able to work in different genres, then you are able to work on a lot more different shows.
Right.
You're not limited.
Right. Now, you have credentials that's just far beyond just voice acting as well. But with that said, what are some of the misconceptions that, and you go to a lot of cons, you've done a lot of interviews and such, or you spoke to people in general who, know who you are. But what are some of the misconceptions that people have when working your crafts?
You mean about being a voice actor, or?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like some of the, because I've come across people, especially just doing what we're doing. It was just different from what you're doing. Sort of, kind of. But I've had people who just think that, things happen in a half hour, that you can get stuff done, like this, like it's easy to do this.
Like you don't have to edit it.
Yes.
Like it's easy to schedule.
It doesn't take hours to do 5 minutes or a minute.
Yeah. Well, I think that some of the things that are misconceptions, one, that they see us go to these conventions and they think that we're all famous and that we have loads of money, and that's not true. I think voice actors, specifically for like anime voice actors, probably make the least amount of money,
right?
As any other voice actors, and a lot of us still have to do other jobs to make the ends meet. So there's that. We spend a lot of time auditioning for things that, we not working. We spend more time auditioning than working. And then the other thing, let's try to think. So our fame and our money is probably greatly exaggerated to some. The other misconception is that it is easy or that anybody can do it. And that's not really the case. Some people could be more natural at, like, have a, just a natural inclination for it so that they might be naturally good at it.
Right.
But it is work. And I still take classes for it. And I treat it like something that I could always improve at. I don't treat it as that I'm ever like, oh, I've made it or whatever. I always treat it as a learning process. It's something I take very seriously about it. People go to school for it. They go to college for it.
Right.
A lot of actors who are very serious, like we will talk about philosophies and approaches to all of this thing. So I think that there's this misconception that you can just, walk into a booth and just speak your lines and that's it. Or like that, I can sound angry, so I'm just going to yell, or, oh, you're just choosing to make a very high pitched voice or something. It's a lot more complicated than that.
Well said. Honestly, the questions that you have answered here has been a blessing to my ears. I've had so many people who I think really don't understand the hard work that has been put into anything that in regards to rather media or art related, and what you guys do are phenomenal. And you could tell the hard work and passion that goes into it. And I mean, just spot on with that answer. I totally agree with you on that and empathize at that as well.
I think it's like, right now there's like, you can see so much stuff on YouTube.
Yeah.
So there's this idea, it seems like it's easy. Like people just slap it together.
But not knowing how, exactly. Not knowing that, a 5-minute clip takes 8 hours sometime or two.
Yeah. And you look at some of the really famous YouTubers and they're like, oh, they're just making whatever their little videos. But like the people that I know who do that, and I don't do that.
Yeah.
But it's a full-time job for them.
Yeah.
And that's how they make money that way, because even though what they're doing is fun, but it's a full-time job. They're doing that, like, they spend a lot of time coming up with the stuff, writing the script, then shooting it, then editing it, then it's all. Then they put it to music. It's like all sorts of things going on, that it's a lot more work, but at the same time, it appears like it's easy, like anyone can do it.
It's the idea. Now, like I said, I mentioned about your long list of credits that you've done, especially game credits that you've done. The entire guest of we've had, plain and simple, you've had the most robust of them all. Do you ever get a chance to check out what you've done as far as the games itself? With the gameplays and sceneries and all?
I like games. I'm just not very good at it.
That's a known thing.
So, I don't play them much because I'm not great. But I sometimes check it out. I do like games a lot.
Right.
I tend to play puzzle games, and back when RPGs were turn-based, I would play them because they were much easier. Now it's too much for me. I can't.
The Final Fantasies have changed a lot.
So I tend to play puzzle games. I play a lot of Pokemon Go. I'm just not very good at games, but I'll go over to somebody's house and I'll watch them play games. I actually just yesterday, my friend was showing me like the PlayStation 4, the VR. And we were playing the X-Wing Rogue One game. So I tried that. It's like an 11-minute campaign, and I hit one TIE fighter. Just so you know. Yeah, and I think like his first time playing that game, he took out 45
Wow.
TIE fighters, and I hit 1. So
That's still more
when
than
I tell
enough.
you that I am bad at video games, that I died 3 times. I hit 1 TIE fighter. I took out 1 turret on the Star Destroyer.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm very bad at games.
If it helps, first person shooters are not my thing either. So like, the minute somebody hits me in the back of the head, I'm out. So don't feel bad. And trust me, a lot of talent that has been on our show have said they have not rather played the games or not good at their games that they've been into. So that's a traditional thing I'm seeing here, which is fine. I mean, that's the equivalent of me playing Mike Tyson's Punch Out and just hitting Mike Tyson once and then he knocks me out. So, now, back to the anime front here, and especially one of my favorite animes of all time, that is Naruto. You play Hinata, and one of the most beloved, cutest characters on the show, and pretty much one of the shyest characters on the show, too. When you play that character, have you read the scripts every once in a while? Because you know the love situation of her to Naruto. You ever read that and wonder, and get really deep on it, as to wonder, which we now know with the, what happens with those two. But at the time, were you ever wondering, like, when are they going to ever get to that point? Have you ever got involved in the script to that point?
We don't get the script beforehand, so that's not like an option. I guess if I wanted to, I could read the manga, but I just generally don't have enough time to do that kind of stuff. To be honest, though, in terms of Naruto and Hinata, I was never worried because nobody likes Naruto romantically. Hinata's really not had much competition.
That is true.
So it was not something that I was worried. I was more worried about like Orihime and Ichigo, because like, there's a lot of Rukia fans out there. So that but nobody, I mean, as much as people like Naruto, nobody wants to date him. So I was never worried about that pairing.
Yeah, if real world wise, he would be that bonehead guy that everybody would meet him like, how or why did they end up together? That type of situation. So I get that. You also had or have the pleasure of playing the voice of arguably probably the most legendary anime character of all time, and that is Sailor Moon. Were you excited about taking on that role, knowing his popularity?
I was excited to be a part of the show. I was a little bit worried about how it would be received. That said, I also knew that there's not much I could do about it. So I had the moment of like, oh gosh, I hope there's not too much hate.
Right.
And then after that, I was just like, all right, I can't think about that. I'm just going to have to do my job. So, yeah.
It's better to just go ahead and take the risk and just, worry about it later than not taking the risk at all.
Well, I mean, I wasn't going to turn down the show. It was, I was thrilled to be a part of it.
Yeah.
But how much I was going to worry about it is something different.
Right, right.
I don't spend too much time worrying about, it's just not. It's I don't find it, like it goes back to like the, it's not a good it's not a good use of your time.
I agreed. And I think everybody should have that mindset. Absolutely.
Yep.
So, and just so happens that coming this January will be a new or revived Sailor Moon movie that's coming out in theaters. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what can we expect?
Well, here's the thing. It's the Sailor Moon art movie. So if you know the movie, you've seen the movie, it's that movie. That is the movie. The thing that's awesome about it is that it's going to be in theaters. So you get to see Sailor Moon on the big screen. And also, it's so rare that you get to see anime on the big screen. True. And it's even rarer that you would get to see Sailor Moon since it's such a, old classic anime. And
it's a good one. I've seen that one years ago. Yeah,
so I don't want to spoil anything in the plot, but That said, I mean, you could just go online or find the old version and watch it. Like, it's not like a total spoiler. But the cool thing is that it is going to be in theaters, and I hope everybody comes out and supports it, because really, it's an eventful thing to have it in theaters. And if we want more things like this for anime, for fandom, then fans have to show up and actually, pay for a ticket.
Absolutely.
Because that's the way the world works, like it doesn't, if they don't sell enough tickets, if they lose too much money, then they're not going to do it again. They're not, because it's not worth it for them. So, because it costs the money to bring the movie to the theaters.
Yeah. Absolutely, and it's a big step for anime too. For any anime that has come out in the theaters, I mean, it means that studios are taking a chance on it, and we need to support it. So definitely, everybody. It comes out January 13th this year of next year.
Yes, January 13th.
Yeah, in select theaters.
In a couple weeks.
Yeah. Just a couple weeks, people. So, and if you haven't seen Sailor Moon or the movie, and if you have seen it and you now have kids, definitely as well, you definitely want to go out your way to show them why that show and why that series is such a beloved series. Definitely. Final question, and thank you so much again, Stephanie, for being a part of the show. You've been absolutely tremendous in this interview. A common question that we always ask our guests out of the list of characters that you've started with since 1991, what characters do you think that resembles you the most? Even if they're a little bit more exaggerated.
Oh, geez. It's
a long list.
I don't know which character is most like me. Geez, that's really hard.
Because you said you were shy, but you're not as shy as Hinata by far.
I was really shy when I was younger. It's something that I eventually grew out of it, thank God. But I was also bullied when I was a kid, so that a lot of the shyness came. I mean, I was like an overweight kid that did not have great personal hygiene. So I understand why I would be bullied, but
that's no excuse. That's no excuse. We're just evil.
No, I mean, kids are, when they're different, they tend to get picked on.
That is true.
And it's not cool or it's not nice, but like, it's not like I was this like well-adjusted, adorable, funny, charming child. I was a little bit awkward, wore sweatpants for multiple days on end. And I was like chubby and shy. So I was not exactly the popular kid. That said, geez, this is a hard question.
Forgive me, I know, because it is look, people, if you go into IMDb and see all that she's done, you can understand why we probably will be here till tomorrow.
It's not even about which character. It's not about the number of characters. It's just like, I'm trying to think. I don't feel like there's I don't feel like too many characters are like me, maybe Mamimi, because she was also picked on, and for a while I really liked to burn stuff. That's the only thing I could think of. But personality wise,
that's a story for another interview.
Yeah, it's hard to say. Yeah,
not a problem. Well, definitely go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, if you don't mind,
not a problem.
If I could just take some time to just talk about the actor strike that's going on.
Thank you, because I didn't know whether you wanted to, if you could actually go to that. And I've been following it on Twitter and been supporting all of you, Kyle Habert and Molly Flanagan. By all means, please, people need to know about this.
So I don't know if how many of your listeners play games and stuff like that. And so the SAG-AFTRA is the actors union. And they support the actors, and they kind of set the guidelines for union jobs, which means they establish the rate. Like that way, game producers can't abuse the actors, so they can't say like, oh, because there's so many people who want to be a voice actor, right? Like so many people want to be a voice actor in a video game, but they set these regulations so they can't say things like, hey, you get to work for $1 an hour, because there's so many people who would do that. So the idea is that actors are part of this union, and they have like kind of standards, and they have a contract that they agree to and they negotiate to. And so the contract for video games, when it was created a long time ago when like gaming was like such a new thing.
Right.
And it needs to be, the contract expires, so it needs to be updated. And the SAG-AFTRA was in negotiations with several game producers, and they couldn't come to an agreement.
Mm-hmm. And
so because they can't come to an agreement, the actors are on strike, which means that we're not working.
Right.
Which means that, for I guess 2 months now, I guess.
It's 2 months, but if I'm correct, this discussion has been going on for far longer than that, correct?
Oh, yeah. It's been going on because they've been in negotiation.
Right.
Like, they have been negotiating, and they've been trying to come to agreement, and it just hasn't happened. So that's why we're on a work stoppage. And just to clarify this, it doesn't mean that all games are being stricken.
Right.
It's just certain companies, and these are the companies that are kind of like refusing the terms. And some of the terms have to do with what they're considering, I guess, like bonus pay.
Yeah.
So, the actors would like to have some kind of extra payment if the video game does really well.
Right.
And I think that there's this misconception that the actors are like just trying to be greedy, right? So when I go into...
I'm sorry, I know the LA Weekly was one of the misconceptions of that they wrote an article about that.
They wrote a story that kind of implied that. But just to clarify for your listeners so that you know that when we talk about this, how the bonus pay, the proposal of how it is set up is that, as it stands, when an actor goes in, we work in 4-hour sessions typically, right? So we get paid for 4 hours worth of work.
Right.
And then the idea for bonus pay is that we would get a percentage of what we got paid for those 4 hours.
Right.
As a little bonus when the game makes 2 million like when it sells 2 million copies.
Right.
So if it sells 2 million copies, we get a little bonus.
Mm-hmm.
And the bonus is a percentage of what we made, So it's not like we're not talking about like huge bonuses, we're talking about like less than $100, like, you know what I mean?
Right.
It's not huge. And then what happens is when the next 2 million, so when it hits 4 million, we get another little bonus.
Mm-hmm.
And then when it hits 6 million, we get another little bonus. And then when we hit 8 million, you get another little bonus. And then it caps out at 8 million.
Wow.
Which means if a game makes 20 million, 40 million, whatever, we don't get any more bonuses. Right now, the actors don't get any bonuses ever.
Wow.
We don't get any sort of bonus at all. So we just get paid for our 4 hours worth of work. And that's it. That's, so they would like to put in some kind of structure in there for like, hey, if the producers are making a lot of money, then let's all spread it around and give a little bit back, and then the other thing too is about vocal health, to have measures in place to protect our voices, because video game work is the most vocally stressful.
Right.
We're screaming, we're dying, we're grunting. Like sometimes you are screaming so hard that you can't work for the next 2 days.
I've had Kyle Habert on twice talk about his ventures in Street Fighter V, and he has to do and Molly Flanagan too, who does a lot of her she's Naruto, she does a lot of screaming on both the show and the video game. And I asked them about how they preserve their voices like that, and they've both, it's like you have to survive. It sounds like what you have to do instead of being
basically have to not work. But they're not paying you to not work for the next 2 days. Right. So it's vocal rest is like the best that you can do. So yeah, there should be measurements in place to protect one's voice. And then the last thing is that voice actors are not the only performers that are part of this, part of bringing the characters to life. A lot of it has to do with stunt performers too.
Mm-hmm.
And if we were on a movie set and there was an action scene, there's something called a stunt coordinator.
Right.
There's somebody there to make sure that the stunt actors, the mocap actors, that they're safe, that all of the safety measures are taken in place, that they've rehearsed it enough, that everything is choreographed.
Mm-hmm.
There is nothing like that for a video game.
Yeah,
there is no safety coordinator on a video game set.
Yeah, Ruben Langdon was on our show too, and he explained something similar to that too, because he does his own stunts.
Yeah, there's nobody making sure you're okay, and you look at games these days, they're more and more action oriented.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a huge safety concern.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of, those are the things that is in terms of what we're fighting for,
right.
If what we're striking for.
I got one question for you in regards to this, too, if you can answer this. I watched the Video Game Awards just recently that just came out, and I'm sure you've heard. I'm sure you know about this. Nolan North, who's one of the most known voice actors out there, did his speech. And first of all, I was wondering whether any of those select companies, the game companies, were going to be there. And in fact, they were. So that was one shocker. Yeah. And then the other shocker was Nolan North coming out to talk about it and bringing up his speech. I'm sure you may have possibly heard about it. Are you able to talk about his speech or have an opinion of what he said?
I haven't heard his speech.
Okay.
I haven't heard his speech. I've run into Nolan. I know who he is, mm-hmm. and he's a very nice man.
Right.
I know that both him and Troy Baker do not support the strike.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, him and Troy Baker don't really,
they have different options than most. I take it.
No, what I'm saying is that they don't make scale.
Yeah.
They're kind of like celebrities, right?
Exactly.
So, like, if you were asking, for example, like if you were asking like Tom Cruise or whoever, Tom Cruise makes millions of dollars. That's his base pay. That's
right.
what he gets paid for this job. So if you're asking him to come and stand up and fight for like residuals, which is like a little bit of percentage, if a movie does well, like it doesn't really affect him so much.
Exactly.
So,
that's what I was pointing out when we had this discussion on our show a while back.
So that's my personal opinion about it.
Yeah.
That said, I don't know. I have not heard from Nolan personally, so I don't know if that's really truly what motivates him. I can't say. That's, everyone has their own take on it.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody is in support of it, but he has a different perspective because
mm-hmm.
it doesn't really affect him.
Right.
This is kind of like for the little people, for the people that come in.
Exactly.
And the hundreds of actors who come in and play soldier A, B, and C and have to yell and scream and are like trying to, pay their rent on their house and
right.
things like that, where something like this would make a huge difference
Absolutely.
to them. And while they may not be like huge stars, their roles are important,
mm-hmm.
in creating the game. So.
Yeah, understood. Well, like I said, I've been following this for the longest time, and I'm so glad that you were able to mention this and talk about this on the show because I really did want to talk about this, but I didn't know how far I can go, whether you guys had some sort of, stipulations on what can be said or not, but I'm glad that you were able to, because I know you're one of the big stronghold in this fight right now, or in this discussion per se. And thank you for taking the time to talk about that because I think
of course.
I empathize with you all as far as the hard work that as artists that you guys put in, and as somebody who was denied his worth and now is out doing his thing. Trust me when I tell you, I'm so happy that you guys are fighting back. And
to be honest, like it's tough right now because I don't think no one wants to not work.
Right.
There are a lot of actors right now. A work stoppage means that we choose not to work.
Right.
We have decided that this means so much to us that we are refusing to work. So that's hard. We all have to we don't still have to pay our bills. We don't want to not work, and we love what we do, So this is the only way we can kind of get the producers to listen and to pay attention and to see that we matter. So if you are not going to, if you're not going to like kind of come to the table and take our concerns seriously, then you don't get our services.
Right.
But at the same time, just to keep in mind that this is hard for all of the actors, especially the actors who really need the money, who need these jobs to make this choice.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And guys, if you really want to know exactly more on what's going on, you could go to the SAG-AFTRA's website. They have all the information to keep you updated on what's going on and where they're going to be at and where they're protesting at. And, just please support this. This is a major deal. I mean, if you've ever been wronged or not, or denied your worth at any job, you should definitely understand what they're going through right now. But they're fighting back, and they're doing a great job doing it so far. I wish you all the best, and you guys, just keep fighting for your worth on that.
Thank you.
Now, before we head off, I want to give you the opportunity to, tell your fans, our listeners, where they can find you and follow you at right now. So, by all means, the floor is yours again.
So if you want to keep up with my ongoings, you can go just follow me on Twitter, which is at Stephanie Sheh. It's just my name, all one word. I'm also on Facebook. I don't add people I don't know to my regular Facebook, but I do have like a Facebook pages. Yeah. So that I'll post links to convention stuff and I posted a link on where to buy the tickets to the Sailor Moon screening. So Facebook, and then on Instagram I'm Touche, the number 2, and then my last name.
Well, Stephanie, thank you again. This has been one of the most cherished interviews I've ever had to say.
Oh, it's so sweet.
It really is. You've been such a sweetheart and a pleasure. Thank you again for taking the time, and I'll consider this my birthday gift for myself coming January the 13th after I actually go see the movie and support that as well.
Happy birthday, early birthday.
Well, thank you so much. So, guys, I hope that you love this episode. And again, support everything that these artists do. Performance does matter. And if you go on your Twitter and you want to pass it on, hashtag Performance Matter, I believe is what they're going by, correct?
Yep.
Okay,
yep.
So you definitely want to do that as well. And keep following Stephanie and all that she's doing. And Stephanie, once again, thank you so much for being a part of Talk Time Live.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. Guys, on behalf of myself and the lovely, talented, and beloved Stephanie Sheh, this is ACMG Presents Talk Time Live exclusive. We're out of here. Take care.